Hey, welcome to Leadership Pathway. My name is Dave Miller. I'm the co-founder here. Leadership Pathway for the last 9 years has been all about helping churches find and support and develop, and sometimes even hang on to young leaders and help them get into ministry and get through a couple years. And if they get through a couple years, they might get to year 3 or 4. And if that happens, they're getting to year 7. Look out. They're going to get into their 30s. And that's what the kingdom, I'm convinced the kingdom needs an influx of a whole bunch of leaders that have been doing this 7 or 8 years. They can take a hit. They know what's important
Yeah.
and they keep leading. And so that's why we started this. We work with churches all over the country that are just starting this journey. They're clicking and they're like, what's a residency? What's an internship? We need to figure this out. And some of them are small churches, but some of them are 7 or 8 or 10,000 people, and they're just now beginning. And every once in a while, it's good to talk to somebody who's been at it a while, who can remind us that you're not crazy. And if you stay at it, this might happen for you too. Matt Uitii of Woodside Bible Church, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I believe in it so much. I've impacted personally, and it's a subject I love to talk about.
Yeah, man. Well, let's start with you. Take us back to school. Where did it all begin for you? What was your journey into ministry?
Yeah. Well, it begins in the home so often, and my parents are first generation believers, and they came to know Christ and didn't know how to raise a family in a way that honored God. So they had to open up the word and be instructed by the word. They had to cling to spiritual community. So my parents actually, when they were buying their first house, they brought a map to their real estate agent. They pinned where the church was. They drew a circle of a 3 mile radius and said, "Find us a house,"
That's
because clinging to the local church was so important for them. So I grew up, with my mom and dad both in the marketplace, physical therapist and
okay.
an accountant. But anytime the church doors were open, we were there. And we also watched them model what it means to live for Jesus Monday through Friday in their workplace, like
Mm-hmm.
Bible studies, prayer groups, stuff like that. And so that really shaped me from a young age of what it means to be part of a local church.
Yeah.
I love designing, I love building, I love
Mm-hmm.
vision casting things for the future. And I thought my trajectory was architecture. So I actually went to school for architecture, my undergraduate. And during that process, I was volunteering in my local church on Wednesday nights with small group ministry. And during that time, that's really where I found joy.
Mm.
Really, Dave, what I would say is obedience,
Yeah.
right? I knew that was where I was in the center of God's will. So I would kind of make deals with God, like, hey, if my project gets chosen for accreditation or the gallery, Lord, like that's when I'll find fulfillment and happiness. And that happened, and I was more excited to look forward to discipling these bros on Wednesday nights than I was, you know, the architecture journey. Anyway, so it was a huge thing for me, but 2004-ish is 2005, when I vocationally surrendered to Jesus.
Okay.
And so I'm sure there's people listening right now that's like, oh, yeah, I can point back to when
Sure.
I vocationally gave my life to Jesus. And for me, it was that time. So I shifted in. I did an internship at my church, and get this, my email address for that church ministry was intern1 at, and then the church handle. I don't know if the church was thinking they would give it to the next intern, or I don't know what that was, but it made me laugh. Really felt known and loved.
Yes, that's so
But
good.
anyway, so that internship thing really helped me kind of see what it means to be given responsibility
Yeah.
and have encouragement, but also high
Yeah.
feedback, and be around all of those leaders. And so I went to ministry school,
Mhm.
got a degree, all the things in
I'm
2007.
curious, did you finish the architecture thing or did
I did
you
not. So
merged out?
I
Okay.
was 1 year away,
Okay.
and I really saw you can do nothing essentially with an undergrad in architecture.
Yeah.
You have to have your master's to be licensed,
Yeah.
at least in the state where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I
So
kind
you were
of,
in Michigan. You were born and raised up there.
Yep, born and raised in
Okay.
Michigan. I was
Right
in
on.
Michigan. There's three schools for architecture,
Yeah.
and yeah, kind of had some interesting conversations with professors who are like,
Yeah.
"Wait, what are you doing?"
Yeah. Right.
Uh, and it's neat now. I like to
I'm,
say I get to build with the greatest
no,
architect.
I
Now,
love it.
like that's what I get to do.
I'm curious, these amazing parents that you told us about.
Yeah,
When you said, Mom, Dad, bad news, good news.
yeah,
I'm going to ministry school. I've been doing this stuff on Wednesday night. What was there? If we were making a movie about it and we needed a 30-second scene, right? It probably took months of talking, right? But you got to
yeah.
condense these things down. How was that scene? How did that scene play out?
That scene would have lower lighting and quiet. There was a lot, right? Remember, my dad was in accounting,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So he was crunching the numbers and thinking, you
Yeah,
are setting yourself up for a struggle,
yeah,
right?
right,
And it was interesting because I thought that they would rejoice.
right,
I thought that there would be uh, a different
right.
response. And I think there was that quiet, there
Yeah,
was that counting the cost because I think they knew, you know, enough, like they
yeah,
hadn't been in
sure.
vocational ministry, but they knew enough to know the type of well, future, that
Yeah,
meant for me. I was dating someone at that time,
yeah,
and she was going to marry an architect. And that was a really cool calling of God individually calling her to
yeah,
be a pastor's wife
yeah.
because that was separate, right? And then how God brought us together and how we truly can do more together than separate for the kingdom.
And
And
her
then,
dad was thrilled, I'm sure, that when he found out you were going to be an architect, no, you're going to be a church guy.
uh-huh, that guy. Oh, all right.
You
Yeah.
think, hey, do you think that was 20 years ago, you said, about a little over?
Yep. Yeah.
Do you think that topic, if we just double clicked parents and 22-year-olds vocationally thinking of, do you think that topic's gotten easier? Is it harder? Has it changed? What do you hear where you're embedded and what do you think?
I think it's harder. I mean, parents have a harder time understanding what vocational ministry is. I think today, you know, I well, depending on your church, right?
Right.
Depending on your church and your
Understood.
church size,
Yeah,
that
sure.
probably makes a big difference. Because I remember early in ministry, people would ask me, so I was a youth pastor for a long time.
Yeah.
People, students, their parents, they'd be like, "So what do you do?" And I would talk to them and they'd be like, "Yeah, cool. What do you do between Monday and Friday?" Like,
Right.
what I just told you is
Yeah,
what
right.
I do. Because
Uh,
I just think there's people who just
yeah.
don't know.
Well, if you're, a lot of us, for those of us, I don't know if your mom or dad, either one, were behind the scenes at your church. If your dad is a marketplace person, but they've been an elder, your
Yeah,
mom,
he was. Yeah.
they know what you're talking about.
Yes,
They've
for sure.
seen how the sausage is made, so to speak. They don't want that for their own kid. That's one
Yeah.
thing. The other thing is just, man, I mean, I've raised a couple of them. But at age 22, I'm like, get off my cell phone plan, get off
Yeah.
my health insurance, move out, leave us alone, or downside. All of the things you go through, and then your kid decides to do something other than go chase um, success, like all of your friends' kids did,
Yeah.
and that's tough. It's a tough conversation.
Yeah.
Although where it is today, if you showed me two go-getters and one's getting a business degree and one's going into a great church like you're a part of, who has a better shot at making a living by age 25?
True. Yeah.
I don't
True.
know, man. In this, we don't talk about ministry that way, but with the door closed with parents, I do because the need out there is enormous, and it depends on where you're embedded. It depends on where you are and what you're doing. But man,
Yeah.
the number of college grads right now who've been out for a year or two struggling on the employment thing of what they thought versus what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Back to the story. So you become a youth pastor. Was
Yep.
this at Woodside or
It
were you?
was. Yeah. So Woodside became multi-site in 2005.
Okay.
Went from one church in one location to one church in two locations. The model has always been live preaching at all of the
Okay.
campuses. So that kind of changes a little bit of the structure and obviously the campus pastor role.
Yeah.
But in 2005, I did a pretty intense internship. Some would say residency,
Yeah.
but before it was really,
Yeah.
created.
Sure.
And then in 2007, I was ready, so to say.
Yeah.
I had proven to the organization that I was ready. I'd had that experience underneath me. I had, chipped away at the schooling needed.
Or
And then
maybe they were desperate. They couldn't find anyone
let's say
else.
that.
The
Yeah,
guy
like
quit and we're like,
totally.
you're in.
Yep.
It could have been a little
You're
bit
in.
of both.
Exactly, right? And I'm so thankful, whatever the situation
Yeah.
of God's providence.
Yes.
And yeah, 2007 in March, I proposed. In
Wow.
August, I took the full-time position. In September, I got married,
Yeah.
and it's been incredible ever since. So we were there at that campus for 9 years, and during that time,
You were a campus
Woodside.
guy or a youth guy or what were you
I
doing?
was a youth guy at
Okay.
that campus for about
Cool.
2 years, and then you know how often it happens.
Sure.
More is put on your plate.
Sure.
And so I became the next gen guy at that campus. And that
Okay.
campus grew to about 800, 900 people.
Okay.
And it's just really neat to see it grow over those nine
Yeah.
years. And before the concept of central ministry was a
Yeah.
thing, we
Yeah.
were living it out. And I think you often see that in multi-site churches that start with campus directors who have high friendship and equity because
That's
they
right.
do it naturally.
That's right.
So we were collaborating
Good.
around student retreats. We were
Yeah.
collaborating around writing series together. And there's a whole lot of collaboration. And what today would be called central,
Yeah.
we were doing it
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And we were essentially adding a campus almost every year. Uh,
Wow.
so we became the support, the brotherhood of like,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, we're gonna, launch a new campus. This is
Yeah.
this is how we can bring in that new youth gal or youth guy, bring them into the fold. They're a part of something bigger. We can help, train them up, stuff like that. And so we saw a lot of that happen throughout the years. 2016, I shifted roles. Um, we could talk about that if you want.
Yeah.
And here I am
Well, I'm
today.
interested. I'm interested, just off to the side for a second. It seems like large, growing, multi-site churches. Woodside has been one of them and an early pioneer. It sounds like in that world
Mhm.
to that size. Student ministries is always when I talk to people, it's like worship, communications, guest services, first impressions, kids,
Mhm.
weekends, how feel, how we disciple people, how they engage, the QR code to a group, all that stuff. Students, you get to students, and they're like, they're either switching it back to something else or they're going to
Hmm.
something. What was your experience going through that ride as a student guy at Woodside? Was it hard at the campuses to replicate what was going on or not so much?
I don't think so at all. I don't
Oh,
think so at all. And I think that's because, and you probably caught while I was talking about it, that friendship, that camaraderie,
yeah,
that let's take the mountain together,
yeah,
and we had some people leading us that were just visionaries for reaching
mm,
students in
yeah,
all Southeast Michigan region for Jesus.
yeah,
And that's contagious when you're around other staff members that are willing to come in early, stay late, dream big,
yeah,
find creative ways to fund things, constantly looking and networking with other churches to be a learner. Like all of those things create a vibe that you just want to be part of. So we didn't really struggle with student ministry. I'd say across all the core ministries, the student ministry really was the one that led the others
oh,
as the worship directors and kids, like you said, or guest services. They would be like, well, we don't have that. We don't
right,
have that relationship with some of the other directors at the other
yeah,
campuses. Like, how could we get that?
yeah,
And we're just so thankful when we look back at that era, so to say,
sure.
and say, thank you, Jesus.
Who was the who was making it all happen?
For me, I had two mentors during that time. And they essentially were the youth pastors at the founding campus.
Okay,
So the church, we just celebrated our 70th, 70
Wow.
years of
Wow.
ministry. And a Jerry Hines and a Steve Zarelli were mentors to me. And like when I interned under them. I started in middle school, and then the high school guy, Jerry, was like, "What is Matt doing? You know,
Mhm.
can high school ministry pay him for 5 or 10 hours?"
I
And
love
then
it.
a little bit later, the college guy, Cliff Johnson,
I love
would
it.
be like, Who's Matt? Can I pay him from the college
Yeah.
ministry?" So I just got to learn from those three individuals who were gifted in very different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got to learn, firsthand.
Were those people 20 years older than you, 10 years older than you back in that
10.
day? 10
Yeah,
years
probably
older.
10.
So you're 23, they're 33.
Yep. Yeah. They had young kids. I
Sure.
was just getting married.
Yeah,
When
right.
I was dating Adrian, they were like, "Tell me about
Yeah,
Adrian.
right, right, right.
How are you going to propose?"
Yeah, they were
Like
so old
they
and
were in it,
wise.
so old
So
and
old and
wise.
wise. I had a similar experience. It at churches we where we're embedded, the pastors, and sometimes the pastors with their, direct oversight of an intern or a resident, that gap is not 10 years anymore. It doesn't feel like it's
It's less. What do you think?
no, gosh, no. Oh no. No, it's a canyon. It's 20
Oh,
years and sometimes more. Someone who's bringing in a resident, they've been in ministry 15 to 20 years,
yeah. Huh.
leading. And I recall at age 23 thinking that 33-year-old boss, so old, so wise, like,
Hmm.
and I have great compassion for the 22-year-old today. And they're in the trenches with someone much older than I, um, eh, you know, was working with when I was that age.
Hmm.
The gap there. Do you see across Woodside? Is there a number that you shoot for, an age gap that you shoot for, and has it just naturally happened that the people with direct oversight of residents or have stayed in that younger age group, or is it something
I'd
you
say
even think about?
that mid age group, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of our interns and residents so they all are required two relationships, a
Okay.
boss and
Yeah.
a formation mentor.
Sure.
And so as you were talking about the chasm gap, I like to see that in formation mentor.
Yeah.
But the boss is typically a little bit younger just because of the landscape of our current staff
Yeah.
and kind of the age of our average um, director or
Sure.
manager, what I would
Sure.
say.
2016, you said the role changed. What happened? What'd you do?
So 2016, I shifted to our founding campus, and half of my job description was leading the kids ministry at that large campus. Had about 700 to 800 kids on a weekend. But at that time, we were running 4 services on the
Yeah.
weekend, a service on Wednesday nights,
Yeah.
a huge basketball outreach. There's just a
Right.
lot going
Yeah.
on. And then the other half of my job description was to set the tone for kids ministry at all of our campuses, 14
Okay.
campuses.
Sure.
So a little bit of both the dual aspect of a practitioner in central ministry, which is
Yeah.
actually where I lean,
Yeah.
uh, as opposed to the ivory tower central model, just
Yeah.
because I think it's important to have a foot in the trenches of what's happening.
What do you think the difference? What do you think the difference is between the personality makeup of someone that succeeds in that kind of role in kids? We're talking fifth grade and down, right?
Yeah.
Versus the personality makeup of the person that excels in students, or does that even factor in your mind?
Well, when I shifted from student ministry to having kids ministry on my plate, I immediately learned that I had to focus on volunteers.
Sure.
A lot of youth guys and gals, they can, because of their high woo,
Yeah. Right.
right? They can walk in a room and they can pretty much command an audience to a critical mass of about 40 or 50,
Yeah. That's right.
which a lot of youth groups are around that size, right? And sure, they can have some parent volunteers and some small group leaders, but you can rely on some of your skills, right? Kids ministry is way different in that in order to divide them by ages and stages and really do if you want to do more discipleship ministry, you have multiple environments, even at a smaller campus, right? And so you are having to learn the art of how to train,
Mhm.
retain volunteers. So
It's
that's a
excellent.
huge key. So I don't think there is a specific personality makeup that even if I was interviewing for, I would disqualify someone, but I'd
Yeah.
want to see that's a big thing between kids and students. Do you have the capacity to recruit, train, and retain? And I always want to see that with any next gen, but I really
Yeah.
want to see it in Kidsmen.
Yeah, that's
If
good.
if someone tells me, and this is a thing that I hear all the time in interviews for residents for kids ministry, is those like, I just love kids so much. I love kids. Um, that's a teachable moment to say,
Yes.
in this role,
Yeah.
you're actually not going to be spending a ton of
Yeah.
time with
Yeah.
kids, and then go on to explain
Yeah.
what a regular work week would look like for you. Um, so, whereas students, like I said, you can love teenagers. I just came back from a weekend retreat for winter experience, and I took the school bus with my eighth grade boys. I'm a small group leader.
How about
And
that?
that's something special, you're
That's
right. And we
cool.
got to love on those volunteers who will do that.
Still in
Uh,
the trenches, man.
you got to stay in the trenches.
Leading eighth grader. That's
You
so
got to stay
great.
in the trenches. Yeah. So I started with these boys when they were in sixth grade, and now they're eighth
Oh,
grade. And I'll tell you, this weekend, spiritually for
yeah.
them, was so
Yeah.
good. And my prayer, Lord willing, is to follow them to 12th grade.
Oh,
Um, Now, when I jumped in 2 years ago, we made a move back to Michigan. I did some time in California,
right.
but I moved back
You did
here.
you did some hard time?
I did some
Did some
hard
hard time and
time
shipped
in
you out to
California.
California.
2 years of ministry. Ooh, it was rough. Anyway, so
Are we allowed to talk about that, by the
we can
way?
talk about it. We can talk
We don't
about
have
it.
to name names.
Um, but I'll say this, and then we can go back.
Okay.
When I jumped back in, I was prayerfully considering, like I need to volunteer. I'm a big proponent that everybody, all of us as staff members at church, should volunteer somewhere in our local
Okay.
church.
Interesting.
Why? Because it
Okay.
connects us in a different way.
Sure.
It brings empathy for different staff
Sure.
members. It shows that we're a part of the team.
Yeah.
So I was praying about where to go, and then I was 39 at the time. I was like, Lord, I think I'm too old to do middle school ministry.
I love it.
And I was like, Lord, would you provide a small group partner for me? Because every small group should have
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
two adult leaders.
Yeah.
That's like 20,
Yeah.
right? So it can bridge the gap to these 11-year-olds at the time. And God
Right.
provided. My small group leader, Ethan, is the most awesome ever. And we're doing ministry together, and it's
So
just
cool.
such a blessing. I get excited to go on Wednesday nights just for
So
the eighth
cool.
grade boys, sure, but also to pour into Ethan, who's this young man who's developing in his faith.
I'd love to talk about California just for a minute
Yeah.
because this happens. Well, it just happened to Pete Carroll, right? Pete
Mm.
Carroll, winner, a football coach. If I hate to use an athletic example, right? But football coach, successful at many levels, takes a job with the Raiders, 1 year and done. 1 year and done. It
Mm.
happens we see it in healthcare, we see it in education, we see it at the Fortune 50 largest, most successful companies in America.
Yeah.
Someone has a 10-year, 20-year sometimes track record of success and
Hmm.
fruitfulness, whatever you want to say, and they go somewhere and it's like, wow, this was. And I had this experience. Now mine was the other way. I went into Michigan, had an experience that within 2 weeks I was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
And ended. I often say I've made bad hires, and I was a bad hire once, and I'm always thinking of that. What was your experience, the California experience, when you're like, "Woo,"
Yeah.
don't want to name names and talk about it, but you left, yeah, and you learned some stuff. What did you learn?
So much, so much. I think to your story that you just shared, and for anyone out there who is hiring someone from the outside of their bubble, I'll say it's very much like an organ transplant. A medical organ transplant, you've got to be delicate. You've got to do all the testing ahead of time to make sure that it's a match. And when that new organ gets inside that body, you've got to be careful, right? In the first few weeks. You can't go out and run a half marathon,
Right.
right? That's got to graft into the new system well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, my situation was not that whatsoever. So part of our journey, a friend had introduced us years prior to a very old prayer. There's a prayer from 1577 from Sir Francis Drake called Disturb Me. And I'd encourage anyone to Google it. And it is a beautiful prayer of asking God to take you beyond the shore into the depths of the water where you can see God's mastery.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often we stay on the shore comfortable and uh, controlling, right? And not allowing God to totally take over. And so my wife and I began to pray that God would stretch our faith and be careful what you pray. And during that time, God made it very clear that we were in a too comfortable spot. We were relying on our own skills and not Him in a dependent, desperate way. And we heard about a church that was wanting to totally reinvent how are they going to reach the next generation. And that was energizing and exciting. I'm a builder, like I said before, so I just loved that idea. The ministry that I was at was having a hard time structurally what to do with innovators, and that could be a whole nother topic. If you over program and over DNA all of your ministries, then that pushes out innovators because they don't know what to do with a 42-page DNA because they're there to, you know, design new stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, nothing ill will, but we knew that the Lord, through praying for deeper faith and wrestling with what would that look like, we said yes to Jesus. We moved 2,300 miles away from all family, all friends. We literally knew no one, and we jumped into a new ministry. Now, kind of the short of the story is you just had three different worlds that were not synced up at that church. You had an elder board, you had an executive team, and then you had a staff. And all three of them were not synced up whatsoever with vision. And I was collateral damage in the middle of it.
Sure. Hey, we'll get back to the conclusion of this video just in a moment, but I wanted to just take a quick moment here. And, you can like, you can subscribe, you can do all the things that you're asked to do when you're watching something like this. But what I really hope is that you forward this on somebody on your team, some friend of yours, someone in your denomination, in your town, your region, your tribe of churches that you belong to. And the other thing I hope I invite you to do, the links below, pick up, if you haven't yet, this copy of Who's the Next You. It's all about how to launch a residency at your church, how to find and how to develop and how to hang on to Gen Z leaders and release them, equip them for ministry for their future, and how to address the staffing crisis that we're all feeling. We're feeling it. That's why we started this in the first place. So we're rooting for you. And then you came back.
And then I came back. So that
They're like,
ended.
hey, your chair's still empty. You want to just come back over here, or what? How did
Well,
that
it
work?
was filled and shifted, right? But it was really cool that senior pastor reached out to me, right? He was scratching his head like, why are you leaving? And he didn't totally understand it. But I will say, even if he was hurt or offended, every few months he would send me a text message. Hey, I was just thinking about you, Adrian, the kids. How are you doing? Praying for you. He didn't have to do that, right? And he's an incredibly busy man.
Yeah.
That meant so much. That meant so much. So when the poop hit the fan, and I was hurting, right?
Right.
And wondering how to walk through all of this, God placed a really cool ministry in Florida, like right in my lap, called Care for Pastors. And for
Okay.
the first time in my life, I received therapeutic counseling.
Yeah.
It was needed.
Yeah.
Like John 15
Yeah.
became very real. In California, we literally had a 20-year-old vine in our backyard, a grapevine,
Okay.
and I literally walked through what it meant to be
Yeah.
pruned
That's so good.
and stumbled upon the Pause app by
Okay.
John Eldridge and the 30 Days to
Yeah.
Resilience.
Right.
And I don't
Right.
think I've cried as much in my life.
Yeah.
those few months. But it was such a time of healing that was deeply needed. And using John 15, that pruning analogy, for fruit that the Lord was going to, to bear. So I was interviewing for a position in Austin, Texas, and that's when my old senior pastor gave me a call and said, I took the phone call thinking he's going to help, like bring some healing words to me. And the phone call was, what can we do to get you back?
Yeah. That's so cool. Good lesson for a lot of people who have staff that leave, maybe.
Correct.
Don't
Yeah.
hound them.
Love
Don't
them.
hound them,
Love them.
but love them and be open to that.
Yep.
And so many times, that when someone calls and says, "Hey, do you know a whatever youth guy, worship leader?" We just like, I'm like, did you try to get them to stay? That's the first
Yep.
thing is, did you make sure they knew that you love them and it sucks and you wish they were staying? And then if they, maybe down the road, they're coming back like you did. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
What year did you come back to Troy or Woodside Bible?
23,
Okay.
20, 23, 24, something like that. I'm not great at time. Okay.
So you've been there a couple of years.
Been here a couple of years. So I came back, and the role I came back for was our Leadership Institute.
Okay.
So there is a Leadership Institute that has been around. We're in its 10th year right now.
Okay.
So at that time, it needed some new leadership. It needed
Yeah.
kind of a reboot in some ways.
Okay.
And I love building,
Yep.
so got really excited about that, and retooled some aspects of the Institute and added some tiers, added some structure between like what we mentioned earlier, that
Yep.
every person should have a boss, every person should have a spiritual formation mentor, and a very clear job description, so to say,
Cool.
and really what their development plan looks like. And did that for a year and really, really enjoyed it. And then my boss at the time uh, was going to shift into a campus pastor position.
Okay.
And it's such a weird role that he was in, where he was kind of overseeing all of the core ministries of the church and the institute. I was definitely like a one-off
Okay.
in that world. But he was such a good boss and such a good listener and such a wise man. And I remember thinking, wow, this role is going to be really hard for the church to find because it's
Mm.
really nuanced. I'm probably going to have to piece together some things for about 6 months before they hire. I
Yeah.
was bracing for that.
Right.
And even researching like, professional coaching and stuff
Yep.
like that. That's an avenue that I had done in 2024 and really
Yeah.
learned from it myself.
Yeah.
And then I got called into the boss's boss, you know, office,
Hmm.
Brad, and I looked at the whiteboard, and there was my name with a new org chart written, with the marker. I was like, "What now?"
Yeah.
Uh, so I, prayed with my
Yeah.
wife and
Cool.
really said, "Wow, this is way beyond what I believe that I could do, but
Right.
isn't that the place to be?
Yeah.
In a spot of faith." And that was last January. So I've been in
Okay.
my current role for 13 months now.
Talk about the Leadership Institute at Woodside. You have interns, you have residents. Give us the lay of the land. What does it
So
mean to be an intern and a resident? How
yeah,
many are there, and all that kind of
we
jazz?
started with interns and residents, right? And interns is more what we would say is high discovery. So someone who's just, I'm interested. Like I want to find out more. Like what's that bump right past high capacity volunteer? And we all have them at our churches. But those people who are kind of wrestling with, I really like this. Like what would it mean for me to take on a little bit more? So that bump past high capacity volunteer is an intern. That's high discovery. And we would say our residents they are refining their calling. So a resident is able to articulate their calling in vocational ministry, and now they need the reps. They need the skills, right? They need a development plan that'll help them do with the safety net and a lot of feedback, with the goal by the end of 12 or 24 months to be staff ready. So in our 10 years, there's been around 350 who have
Mm.
come through the program. and just super pumped to scan that list and to see who's on staff now here. And the number is close to 60
Amazing.
who have come into the pipeline at some point after their residency. Um, but once we started tooling around increasing the role of a resident, and we started doing that 2 years ago, really to say what we're going after, what we interview for, and then what we desire at the end of that 12 or 24 months, because it is a 2-year residency.
Hmm.
Now, some are ready after 12 months
Yeah,
and
right.
they interview for a position,
Sure.
we are really looking for leaders of leaders.
Right.
So we're really looking for preparing people to be director ready,
Okay.
which is a little different than an administrative and
Yep.
coordinate
Yeah,
ready,
right, right.
which we love and we want that and we need that in all of our churches. But if you're going to increase your residency of what you're expecting and what you're coaching around for the outcome, then to me, you need to add other layers. Otherwise, you're creating too big of a gap
Hmm.
and people can't grow.
It's
Like,
good.
they're in an interview and you have to tell them, hey, you're not ready.
Yeah.
But what road are you giving them
Yeah, right.
besides,
Good.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
grab a snack on your way out
So
of the
good.
HR office? Like, we want to give them a path. And so we really have five tiers or paths into
Okay.
what we're doing. So we do intern light, and
Hmm.
that's really to catch this excited younger generation. So
Yeah.
we're talking 16, 17 year
Yeah.
olds who are like, oh, I'm so amped up for Jesus, for the local church, for potentially discovering vocational ministry. We do an internship, and that is they have to have completed their freshman year of college. Why? Because there's so much around maturity
Mhm.
and discernment that we really want to see.
Hmm.
Again, it's not saying no to other things,
Yep.
because we still have a path for them. Internships is just a little higher tier
Hmm.
than intern light.
Yeah.
And then we have a residency year one. After that, they have to reapply for a
Okay.
residency year two. And there is different expectations for those resident year twos. I should say residents get paid, interns don't, in
Okay.
our setting.
Okay.
And then this year, we're launching a lead pastoral residency. So someone who will come right under our senior pastor with the goal at the end of 18 to 24 months to be a campus pastor or a senior pastor ready at a church in the United States.
Fantastic. What's recruiting look like for Woodside? Do you leave the state? Are you flying people all over the country to all of the schools? Are they more regional? What's it look like?
So we definitely want to partner with um, education because we understand that we don't do that. There
Yeah,
are
yeah.
some
Sure.
residency programs that are accredited,
Okay.
and we looked into that.
Yeah.
And that might be something for us in the future, but
Right.
it's not for us right now
Sure.
because we believe there are some really good schools out there
Yeah.
that we can partner with and
Right.
say, hey, you do your thing, and we understand, and they understand
Yeah.
that
Right.
there's a gap at the end of
Yeah.
graduation
Right.
and the person doesn't have immersive ministry experience. So they love us. So we have two strategic partners in theological ministry,
Okay.
and so we have discounts for our students, to be a part of that.
Yeah.
We have 12 pretty hefty scholarships that we
Okay.
offer for our students and some of our staff even so that they can hit that piece.
Right.
So we'll recruit at those schools, like higher.
Okay. Sure.
And then we have some looser partnerships in
Yeah.
some Michigan schools around town that we
Okay.
always make a visit to. Actually, in a week, in a
Yeah.
week, the
Uh-huh.
Leadership Institute will be at a job fair in Ohio at a big Christian school partnership that we have there. So
Okay.
we do hit those up, but honestly, a lot of our stuff is internal. So our
Okay.
church is it's 14 campuses and around 10,000 people. And we find that a lot of our recruits come from within.
Good for you. I mean, of any emerging trend, even at a church of 500, they'll be like, there's not any, we've talked to everyone.
Hmm.
I just think with how we attend church today, what's normal out there for us.
Uh-huh.
If it's a church of 500, you're seeing 1,000 to 1,200 100 people a week. You don't know. There's a lot of people you don't know. And some
Yeah,
of them have nephews or nieces or kids
absolutely. Yeah.
online, online somewhere, and they're
Yep.
studying ministry. You don't even know they're sitting out there and
Yeah.
sometimes volunteering. Um, how do you think, from where you're embedded, so far your story is amazing. It sounds like the architect, I'm picturing you with like a mechanical pencil in there and your graph paper, and then eventually
Yes.
you're CADing and you're Google sketching and
Yeah.
you're architecting this institute. But Gen Z, what it means to be 22 today has changed since you were 22 years old. How have you, well, what do you see? What do you see? How's it different today? How's that affected the institute and what either you provide or the way you approach
Mm.
them, or the program, or whatever language you would use there? How's it different today at Woodside than it was back when you went through it?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest areas of need that perhaps happened naturally in the home in past decades is an emphasis on EQ and RQ.
Mhm.
So relational intelligence and emotional intelligence is definitely, they're two anchoring areas that I see are a need. And so a lot of seminaries don't have classes in that, because often, and when I talk to some good professors and even some deans at schools, they will acknowledge that those are two critical areas, that need to be addressed. And their approach currently, at least the schools I've talked to, is to attempt to weave them into every subject. And I would
Mhm.
agree, like I think there
Mhm.
is power in that,
Yeah,
systematic
sure.
theology,
Of
how
course.
to pepper that in,
Yeah.
or social psychology, how to
Right.
pepper that in, all of those things. But I would say, from a developmental standpoint, as we come alongside of interns and residents, we have got to provide resourcing, allow discussion.
Yeah.
So in our program, we have a Thursday intensive. So it's
Mhm.
about a 1 hour time where we're all together covering content.
Yeah.
And I would really encourage anybody who's listening who has interns and residents to really think through the balance of lecture and lab.
Yeah.
So often we love to lecture because we feel
Mhm.
like the Lord has allowed us to
Yeah.
navigate years
Yeah.
and we have some wisdom and we're
Yeah.
going to share it.
Yeah.
But what I found is that the 22-year-old, about 5 minutes in,
Yeah,
their
dude.
eyes are glazed over and
Yeah.
they're wondering, "Oh, how does this even apply to me?"
Right.
Right? You're like 43. You're
Right.
so
Exactly.
so when you can pause, and that's why
Hmm.
I prefer critical mass of our
Yeah.
program,
Yeah.
to have 12 or so in the room, 12 to 15, because you can say, okay, turn to the person next to you and talk about this
Right.
question.
Right.
And it's allowing them to dive into it, right? So
For
when
sure.
we have speakers come on Thursdays and they're given 60 minutes, we
Right.
really challenge them to say 30 or 40 of the minutes should be lecture, the
Hmm.
rest of it should be lab. And then
Yeah.
we give them some ideas of how to do the lab
Sure.
elements.
Sure. Sure.
But it's got to be because they have to be in it and processing. And then in our kind of scope and sequence of 12 months, we like to hit different buckets and we'll
Yeah.
rotate the books we use
Yeah.
for curriculum purposes. But our fall semester is always EQ and RQ.
Right. Right. Right.
So we'll pick different books that fit that category, but we're unapologetic about how we're
Yeah.
leaning into those categories
Yeah.
to help people grow in their emotional intelligence, their self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like, you've talked to so many ministry leaders who have made big mistakes because
Sure.
they were not self-aware.
Sure.
And so that piece for a young developing leader is crucial.
For sure. I mean,
Crucial.
I'm teaching later today some interns for someone about time management, and it
Ooh,
does strike me, and they're both college seniors, I think. So they had 12 years of now they've had 16 years of formal education. Think about that, 16 years. And they're at a fine Christian university with world-class instructors.
yeah.
And here's me over a Zoom. I pretend I can go into that pretending I have something else I could say that they've not yet heard about time management, or we can just ask questions and talk. And then beyond that, their supervisors, Monday through Thursday, observing, giving them feedback real time, helping them down the road. I mean, we still need instruction. I'm not saying we don't, and we
We
do.
do.
We
Yeah.
do, absolutely. We need 3 steps to something. I could use it every day. My inbox, like yours, is full of all the podcasts and the PDFs that I've taken, from people. But man, a boss that's giving me some feedback real time
Yeah.
as we go down the road together, that's definitely something that the seminary or the university struggles to provide. They can give you the information, but
Right.
how do we build these relationships where we get this feedback?
Mhm.
But it strikes me that Woodside and churches like you are the field, you're the field experience to be
Yeah, the
coupled
teaching
with
hospital.
a great education. So
Yeah.
kudos on all that, man. That's great. Where's it going for? Where do you when you're on the leadership retreat or you're on the long van ride with a couple of staff people and you talk about the institute, you talk about the future, and is college collapsing? Is AI going to eat us? Is do we need a book at all, or do we? What do you
Right.
think? Where do I mean, you've seen a long arc already there, a couple of
Yeah.
decades of how do we find staff, equip staff, and
Yeah.
release staff, and we have wins and we have some not so much wins along the way. But where do you see it going from here?
We need to lean in on developing middle managers, right? I think that's a category that many have said is, not discussed. So in having interns or residents, really, whether it's great or flops is largely dependent on who their boss is,
Yeah.
not necessarily the structural elements of the program and how organized it is, but who are they paired with? That part is crucial. And a lot of campus pastors who are overseeing staff, they are caring for them in a certain lens for shepherding of their flock, but they're not necessarily developing them. And I say this in the best way because I absolutely love our leaders here. They're not necessarily developing them to care and manage for people. So, and I remember my story when I was given my first, supervisor position and I had 2 direct reports. I had no clue what I was doing. And I don't think I was trained. I had to be self-taught in that category. I think people are super hungry for mentorship. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing that very much so with the individuals in their 20s. But let's not be surprised. Like people in their 30s and 40s are also wanting
Heck yeah.
mentorship,
Heck yeah.
strategic mentorship. And so I dream about discipleship structures that help me grow
Mm-hmm.
as an
Mm-hmm.
individual. I'm 43. Like I
Yeah.
want to see what does God have for me, and is it more education? Should I get my doctorate in organizational leadership?
Yeah.
Should I enter into an intense, professional coaching environment,
Mm-hmm.
from someone? Should I,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, I want to be developed. I think if we can come up with something where all tiers of individuals are encouraged to be developing and not just plateau. I think that is something that could unlock, and we could
Yeah.
really see some wow things in the future.
Seems to me if those middle managers came through Woodside Bibles Institute, sounds like
Right.
some of them, a lot of most, you might say, did. You have a shot. If they've come from the outside and
Mm,
they were like a lot of us, just pushed into it. They fought hard. They didn't die. They were still there at age 30. Most of their peers had gone on to do something else with their life.
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we knock churches a lot of times of not being good at leadership development. My sense, having been around it now, I think it's more about the size of the organization. I think even for-profit companies really, they're not good places to grow and develop as a middle manager
Right.
unless you work at a Fortune 100 and there's thousands of employees and there's layers of a university in-house and
Right.
development help in-house,
Yeah.
very few of us will ever work at a place the size of Woodside Bible
Hmm.
that has a shot at doing that. So what an opportunity for you guys. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Matt Weedy, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what should I put in the show notes below?
My email. I'm
Your
super
email?
old school when it
Okay.
comes to that. That's probably the best.
Email, phone number, social security,
Yep.
pins, all the pins, they'll all
Put it
be
all in
there.
there. Put it all in there.
And if you want to, if you're thinking, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, that's great, but I don't have 10,000 people in my church and 14 locations, and I don't have Matt Weedy. There's hope for all of us. I would say every church in America, you may call it anything you want. I don't care. Some sort of system,
Yep.
some sort of plan that helps replace the employees. Let's just make it as simple as possible. When everyone who's there working at the top of these things, there might only be three people.
Hmm.
The youth and the kids and the worship and the pastor, do they all have someone that they're
That's right.
looking at thinking this person could be the next me here someday? It might take 6 months or 2 years or a lot longer than that. When that happens, the leadership development vacuum that a lot of us are, that it'll be fixed. It'll be fixed.
Yeah.
And that's my encouragement in this conversation today. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for Woodside Bible, and thanks for going ahead of us.
Yeah.
And we've got something we can look at and think maybe someday it'll look like that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Absolutely. God is
Appreciate your
good.
time. Take care.
Thank you.
Mhm.